It's preparing to live stream. I'm gonna get this description ready to add it to the video. All right, let's see, edit video. Hello, everybody. I know we are live. Just give me one moment here, and we are going to breathe. We're actually not gonna breathe here, but we are gonna go deep into the concept of breathing so deep that you overcome all that holds you back. So, hold on. All right. So hello, everybody. I am Seth. I'm one of Laura Eisenhower's friends. This is our community channel. We are using this platform to, there's so many philosophies and ideas and things related to what's happening in the world right now that it's easy to get caught up in what we think all these things mean, right? And so people can get lost in this conceptual, philosophical narrative about what they think is happening, when the reality is there could be a lot more direct guidance of, okay, we think this is what's going on, but what do we do? And what we do, there's enough people like really helping us know what to do. But what to do is actually very simple. When you consider it and you think about it, you just put a few things, like a few fundamentals together: food, air, water. And then how do you take that and begin to cultivate a sense of awareness that expands beyond the conditioned limitations that a lot of people find themselves stuck in? And as everybody knows, what's going on in the world right now is creating massive anxiety in a lot of people. I have so many people who reach out to me every day who are like help, what do I do? Like, being a survivor of extreme abuse and trauma and all this stuff, and being able to bounce back from that. It wasn't like, oh, this huge revelation or anything that happened. It was just simple things that I did consecutively, consistently, that eventually led to overcoming the resistance to the extremes that we can sometimes feel. And if there's one thing that is truly fundamental, as it says in the description of this video, it is breathing. And what people don't know is that if you breathe and you do it right and you keep doing and you breathe with full lung capacity and you just relax while you're doing it, you go deeper than certainly I can't even comprehend it. I can't even imagine the potential. And so with that said, I wanted to introduce my friend Ra to you, because he does this Sunday breathing program that I've been doing for the, past couple months now or something, 3 months or whatever. And every single time we do it, it gets better and better and more amazing. And I've been having revelations and breakthroughs, and more than any of that, you find these little deep, dark corners of yourself that maybe you haven't been able to overcome, and maybe you're not even conscious of them. But when you're breathing in all the ways that he's going to talk about and we're going to get into, it has a way of bringing those deep, dark things up and out in a way that is integrative, and allowing you to integrate more of this invisible field that's causing all of us to exist, to integrate it consciously into your awareness in a way where you're no longer held back by those deep, dark things that most people don't want to feel, and not only allow themselves to get caught up in, but allow their entire personality to be shaped by. So I wanted to introduce Ra. I wanted to bring him on and have him talk about what he does and the importance of it and whatever he wants to share about it, because it is so powerful, especially in these times of, oh my God, I'm so anxious, what do I do? Or, oh, I'm so depressed, I can't deal with it. when you do this, it literally causes a cascade of feel-good chemicals to be released from the glands of your body that flood everything, and it sends new signals of healing, of wellness, of wholeness, not to mention as a health practice. When you hyperoxygenate your entire being, oh my God, the health benefits just from that alone, in conjunction with these releases of DMT or I have no idea what metabolites are released from these glands of our body, but you get beyond what holds you back. So everybody, this is my friend Ra. And
hi everybody. Yeah, so Seth, thanks for the awesome intro. Something you said that really made me giggle a little bit was this thing about hyperoxygenating. So a couple months ago, I got access to a hyperbaric chamber. So I had a hyperbaric chamber in my house for a little bit, for like a month or two. And I was doing breath work inside the chamber. So even if you don't do anything in a hyperbaric chamber, you're going to get more oxygen because that's what it does. It's a highly oxygenated environment. Or no, it's the pressure. It changes the pressure. So whatever, oxygen goes in easier.
Hyperbaric oxygen chamber, is that what it's called? Or?
It's not oxygen. It's not like they're pumping in oxygen. They're just having more air around you. So there's more oxygen around you so you can pick up more. But yeah, I was doing breath work in there, and that was really fun because you just get into it so fast. Wow. And you know, I feel like once you're open and you're breathing and you know how to breathe deep and fully into your body, you can get into it within a few breaths. But I feel like in there, it's just a whole other thing. Kind of unnecessary. It's like a really cool toy. But yeah, look, I mean, all of us have channels of energy flowing through us. Like if you ever been to a Chinese medicine or an acupuncture clinic, they have a model of the body with all the lines all over it. Or if you just go on Google and type in meridian lines or acupuncture chart or reflexology chart, you can see all the different lines that our energies flow on, right? And you know, different systems call it different things. Like in Chinese medicine, they call it meridian lines, and in India they call it like chakras and nadis. So this is a pretty well-studied thing. It's not woo-woo.
New age mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. This is ancient.
Exactly. It's not new age. It's old age.
Yeah, it's old, and maybe not everyone's subscribing to it right now, but it's how our bodies work, and
that's the real thing about it. And I don't want to keep interrupting, but essentially what we're talking about is because most people are so stuck in thought, in belief, in who they think they are, in conditioning, that they forget that there's a neck and a body connected to this head underneath. And because of that, everybody's kind of like breathing really shallow, which that in and of itself leads to issues. So what you do and what you help people actually do is just you're accessing more of what you are. And it's really simple.
Yeah. I mean, like, so, you know, our lungs, for example, they hold grief. So if somebody dies, or you go through a breakup, or you happen to find yourself in the middle of a global pandemic, you're going to have grief, and it's going to just naturally, your lungs are going to like hold that grief. And so you're not going to breathe as fully as you normally would. Even like, let's say you go out on a walk, you're going to notice that your breathing is not as powerful. You know, I just heard a commercial the other day for some sort of like stomach stapling center, you know, like these clinics that staple your stomach, because they were saying that like millions and millions of people have gained so much weight through the pandemic. So let's staple their stomach. But what if you just dealt with the grief and dealt with the emotional side of the world changing a little bit? Why, you know, you would need to like do something so invasive as changing your the shape of your stomach surgically. So it's always exciting. Like my absolute delight and joy and pleasure in life is every Sunday hearing people talk about what shifted. So at the beginning of the session, we all share pretty, openly about what is going on in our life, and we all hear each other and kind of hold some space for that. And then at the end, people are in a whole new place. Like I remember I had a session with this woman. She was so distraught, and she was going through her divorce. She was getting ready to file the divorce, and she was like getting firm in her heart about it. And she was very conflicted, obviously. And after the session, she was just like, I see it all. This is all perfect. Like she was basically talking like a completely different person. She had no confusion, total clarity, knew exactly what needed to happen, wasn't burdened by any of it. She saw the perfection in all of it. And it's, it's stuff like that just gets me excited to wake up early on Sunday morning.
And what he's saying, for everybody who's listening to this or watching it, it's not just like, oh yeah, like everybody that I've done this with who's been there and done it, everybody's like, holy crap. I mean, you go through rapid transformation in one session. It's that powerful. It's that transforming. So
well, it's kind of like it's like watching a movie or something. You go into the movie, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But then you see so much stuff. You're taken on so many journeys emotionally, and I don't know, maybe you saw an explosion or you saw a really nice kiss or something. And at the end of it, you're looking at life a little bit differently. So it's fun. I mean, like I can only speak personally for my own experiences, but when I first got exposed to the idea that breathing could be more than just an automatic body function. Yeah. Like, look, I'm not pumping my blood right now. I'm not telling my heart to beat. I'm not like, okay, boom, 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 right? So I have nothing to do with my heartbeat. And a lot of people have absolutely nothing to do with their breathing. They're just like, I don't know why I can't breathe big. Like look at how many people are on sleep apnea machines. Like sleep apnea just means you haven't given any thought to your breathing. Like I was in a relationship where I started snoring, and so I just focused on it and really, really went into it. And I said, like I go into these breathing sessions and I said, like, God, body, like all sources of information and wisdom, tell me, like, what is it about the breathing? And what I got was that there was something about my life that I wasn't super excited about. And so while I was sleeping, my body was snoring. But if you take that further, it turns into sleep apnea, and it turns into all kinds of other bigger problems. Another thing that the modern human being is challenged with regard to breathing is our jaw. So think about what you eat, right? If you have smoothies, anything in a package, everything's pretty great to just kind of slide through your mouth and just put it right into your body. Like a smoothie, that's like a whole meal. That's hours of chewing, or maybe 1 hour of chewing that you just swallowed, right? So your body got all this nutrition and your jaw didn't get any of a workout. So our ancestors, like if you're into paleo food and all this kind of stuff, like if you're eating like that, your ancestor to get that kind of nutrition in would be chewing for 4 to 6 hours a day. And that's going to give you a really developed jaw, really, chiseled jawline. It's going to widen your face. There's, if you just go on Amazon and type in book about breathing, there's several books about breathing, about the science and technology of it. And some of them talk about this jaw thing where, when your jaw is not being used in the way it was designed for. And when I say that, I mean, if you're not chewing 4 to 6 hours a day, your jaw is atrophying. And that's the only reason we have any teeth problems. That's why our wisdom teeth get crowded, because our jaw is not being worked out our whole life to be big enough to hold all the teeth that we have. That's why in like, if you go to the outback and you find an Aboriginal person that's just eating whatever they find and whatever they're hunting, they have no jaw problems, no teeth problems, no cavities, things like this, right? Because they're just working this thing so much. And your jaw is right here, right? It's connected to your airflow, so when you're chewing, it actually strengthens your neck, your shoulders, all this stuff, because you're really getting into the chewing. When I first learned about this, theory, I decided to put it into practice right away. So I went to the store and bought a big bag of gum, right? So I went to Whole Foods. They have gum that doesn't have sugar in it. It doesn't have all the chemicals in it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend this with like convenience store gum.
Right.
If you get it at a convenience store, it's got so many chemicals.
Birch xylitol or something, yeah.
Yeah. You want something with xylitol, with no aspartame, none of that chemical stuff. But yeah, I just put like, look, I keep a jar of these gums by my desk, because anytime my jaw feels sort of not tired, I just start chewing. But I did it. I the first day I chewed gum for like 4 hours straight, and my jaw was just like worked, and I was getting sore in my neck and like all over. So then I did it again the next day, and it got kind of weird because I could feel like it was actually like using muscles in my head, like on the sides of my head. It was using these muscles that I didn't even ever really,
atrophied. Yeah.
I didn't really, I never thought like, okay, I'm going to eat some food. Let me think about these muscles in my head. I always thought it was just down here. So there's all this stuff squishing and squishing and squishing. And eventually, whatever that motion was, the movement of my bones or muscles, like a lot of mucus started coming out, like old mucus from my skull and all up in here. And my breathing changed dramatically. And guys, this was like last week. I've been teaching breath work for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I was blown away that I found something new.
And I'll mention that too for everybody watching. Like, this isn't just somebody that's like, oh yeah, here's some breath work and does. This guy has devoted his life, like some of us have, like left society, left everything, went to study, like, why is this happening? Why are we alive? So this is somebody that practices what he preaches, literally does it. And what he's talking about essentially is embodiment. But go ahead, keep going. I just want to.
Yeah, no, it's great. To your point, when I first got into breathing, I was working in advertising. I was doing Super Bowl stuff for Honda. Really fun job. I had no, issues with that. And I was going through divorce, and I was, dealing with the challenges of child custody and things like that, and dealing with anger, just really, really intense stuff that I never had to deal with. I'd never really dealt with emotions like that before, because I'm an only child. I have a really nice family. I never had to deal with like an angry partner or whatever. Yeah. So when I first realized that my time with my children was going to get diminished, I literally, this is going to sound so sad, but I literally broke my nose on my kitchen floor. I had a panic attack and woke up in a pool of blood, my nose broken on the floor. And I just was like, I gotta get a grip on having feelings, because I'm having feelings to a degree to where like I'm blacking out, like literally getting cold and tingly all over my body and just blacking out. I'd never experienced anything like that before in my life. So I reached out to some friends who were, you know, I didn't reach out to doctors because I'd already, that's a whole other story. I had tons of health problems a long time ago. I went to doctors, didn't really solve anything. Then I went a totally holistic route and everything went away in like a few weeks, like chronic condition. So I had a modified relationship with modern medicine, but I reached out to some energy healers and people like that to figure out how to handle emotions, right? Like, yeah, like I'm a creative person and a pretty cerebral person, and I really like books and reading and all that kind of stuff. So dealing with emotions on the fly was not my strong suit. And I got introduced to some people that have written tons of books on breath work. They take people to the Himalayas and all this stuff. And they found out I was in advertising, so they hired me to make them a video. So they took me to their teacher trainings here in the States. They took me on their advanced course stuff in India, and I filmed everything and cut it all up and turned it into training materials. But along the way, I got an incredible training, but not just that, my consciousness got opened up to beings that are non-physical, and they started guiding me. And I started asking for more guidance. And at some point, they, like literally, I was, my second trip to the Himalayas, I'm literally on the roof of the ashram, just breathing, saying, God, please guide me. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to tell me, I'm in the Himalayas, I'm breathing, hook it up. Like, tell me why I'm on earth, right? And then there's nothing. Like minutes and minutes go by. And, you know, for anyone who's been to one of my breathing sessions, usually there's not minutes that go by where there's nothing happening. Usually it's like fractals and wisdom and all kinds of fun stuff coming through, or angels tickling your toes, or whatever your experience happens to be. So there's nothing. And, you know, this is probably, I don't know, every time I've done breathing before this one time, I was getting so much stuff like visuals. And I mean, you can see this corner of a painting. This is a big painting I did.
Yeah, your painting's unreal.
I've done tons of paintings on all these things I've seen while breathing. And finally, like after 30 minutes of nothing, I just saw this like multidimensional being fly over my face and get all in my face. And I just started seeing flashes of everything I needed to do. And that's what we do on Sundays. It's just it's called Meta Fun Time. You just go to metafuntime.com, you get a ticket and you come and you breathe. It's like a deep spiritual experience, but with not like a guru kind of like you have to do anything a certain way. I just give the basic ground rules, like, okay, not even rules, just like, look, if you breathe like this and you put effort in.
It's up to the individual. The individual, like if somebody, and you say it often, like if somebody does, you gotta breathe. Like you could lay there and just listen to the music and not really breathe, and you're not gonna have an experience the way you're capable of having. So it requires full belly, full lung capacity breathing.
Non-stop for an hour.
Non-stop for an hour, exactly. That's what it is. That's the beauty. Okay, and so that leads to another thing. So it's interesting, the conversation that we've been having, what he's essentially giving voice to, talking about the jaw and how it's atrophied. What this is all essentially leading to is that because of our lifestyle, the way we've been living, we have these, you could call them dormant perceptual energy centers. Everybody has them in them, but they are atrophied.
Yeah.
They are inactivated. And when you just start using what nature, God gave to you, you start breathing, you start doing it, you get beyond your own self limitations, meaning, you know, the self for most people is a memorized set of beliefs, behaviors, and actions that are associated with what we think external things represent to us. So the languages we speak, we form an entire personality based upon conditioning or indoctrination or learned behaviors, when the reality is we have a whole plethora, maybe an infinite ability to these sense perceptions, these sense organs. It's not just sight, sound, touch, taste, and feel. We have the ability to sense things as these truly multidimensional beings that all of us are, whether you think you are or not. And that's where this all leads to. So when you begin to become embodied by breathing, by getting into your body, feeling it and doing it, and you're breathing like that, talk about what happens that, because at some point your brain, it starts releasing these chemicals where you're in for change. You're being changed no matter what, in the best way possible.
There was a guy, he came every week for a long time, and he just got, the first time he came in, he couldn't even talk. He had completely lost his voice, and he was like, is this something I can even do? Is it okay to breathe for an hour with my voice like this? By the end of the session, he sounded like Barry White. His voice had come back super strong. I don't know, like maybe 10 sessions in or something. The guy, he's like full on psychic now. Like full on psychic. He was a construction worker. A friend of his told him to come and it was cool or something, but he's like full on psychic now.
And this is normal. Like, this is the thing, like people have these belief systems like, oh, this and that. Like, take everything you think you know about the world and let it go, and allow the natural pulse of these meridians and these channels and everything. Allow yourself to become conscious of that, to feel it, which is, again, we're not taught how to feel, taught how to think about things, but feeling things, especially things we don't want to feel, has become a very necessary part of being human.
But so the thing about not feeling your feelings, that's what creates disease. I've had so many people, they come for a couple sessions and then they're like, hey, can I talk to you privately? And I'm like, yeah, sure, anytime, and they're like, well, look, I started coming because I was looking for something. I had cancer and it was pretty bad. And I just went and got lab work done and they can't find it. It's gone. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I had a guy, he had one session. He was in a wheelchair. So, we're on Zoom, everyone's watching. He's got the wheelchair. He has to get out of it, lay down, and then start breathing. At the end of the session, he stood up. He hadn't stood on his own in 2 years. And he had so much he had so much stuff blocked in him, but he breathed through it and he stood up. And like, look, I don't know everything about everything, but I've seen people come into these sessions with like real chronic medical problems. And people on their own, they come tell me, hey, this stuff's gone. So,
and again, like this is something that you experience. Like, people go there and they do this. I had, like, when I first heard that you were doing this and I went, I had no expectations. I just didn't, like, I've seen and been exposed to a lot of stuff, but I just let things be what they are. I never knew that breathing in that way for that duration of time would create the kind of effect that it did on my being. I was so overwhelmed with joy. I literally felt so happy and so like grateful, and like, oh my God, I've been going ever since. Now I'm just in love with doing this, and it's caused me to start doing it on my own. But it's interesting, what I've noticed is these group sessions, there's something about these group sessions, obviously we all have to do our own inner work if we're gonna connect and move beyond our limitations. But these group sessions bring another really important element into our lives that society or whatever civilization has. Well, my computer's having an issue here, and I think it needs to bring.
When we do a group session, we're bringing in meditation, we're bringing in prayer, like group prayer. We're all holding prayers for each other. We're all meditating together on a similar outcome, like healing and all this stuff. Every song we play is basically a prayer. When we do it by ourselves, we're just doing like the physical thing, and as much of the prayer and all that stuff that we bring in personally, that's great. But there's something about, look, you're an infinite being. Every single person is an infinite being. When you pray and talk to God and do that stuff on your own, totally cool. But as soon as you have company, as soon as you have one person, it's infinity multiplied times infinity. And the whole thing that's so beautiful about this breathing is its full sovereignty. It's health sovereignty. It's sovereignty with like psychedelics, right? Like, I mean,
the psychoactive properties that your brain releases, the chemical
right.
signal. Yep.
So, I've done a lot of experimenting and exploring of consciousness in different ways. Like I've lived in the Amazon with a tribe, and we drank ayahuasca every night. That's an aggressive way to go. I've also, at one point I lived at a house where every night there was a shaman serving DMT from a toad. It's like an extract from they basically find a frog, like this big toad in the desert, and you squeeze its venom glands and it sprays out and it dries on glass. You chip it off and then you smoke it. And it's the same stuff that your body makes when you're in these deep breathing states. But when you're smoking it, one, you have to get it, which is borderline impossible. Next, you have to pay for it, which, come on, there's
You're
better
depending
things.
on something external, essentially.
Yes.
When you have this internal cornucopia of everything you need, like you said, it is sovereignty. It is truly taking responsibility for your energy. And this is what I want to say too, just to add in it before you keep going. The part of people coming together is so big because it's an area where pretty much everybody gets jammed up on, and that is human relationship. Mm-hmm. Like, we have grown up in the Western world, most of us, and we're taught to like compete with each other for the most part, or I only work with these people if they're part of my organization, or we have all these ideas. But when you come together with people you don't know and you open your heart and you realize that there is because look, at this point, human relationships are so important to evolve, to move forward, to create new systems that are in alignment with the natural world. It's going to require us working together, and for that, we have to let go of all these preconceived notions of we think we know what something is. I mean, we were just saying before, like, go up outside on a clear night and look up and look at where we are. Does anybody really know anything? So when we let go of that and we recognize that each and every one of us are souls, and we can love and honor each other for that instead of judging and like, oh, you don't believe this, or you're not, like, let that go, because on your day of dying, none of that shit matters. But this heart connection that we create by coming together, different people, races, colors, creed, religion, sex, like none of that is there. We are focusing on the similarities and we're enhancing that.
Yeah.
I'm just breathing.
I mean, you hear me every week when we start the session. I say, hey, everybody come off of mute, get on video. Let's all be here together. Because a big part of the brain disease of our world is like watching TV. Like, you know how like right now I see you, you see me, we're talking back and forth. But think about how much information you've been given where you're just hearing the information, like you're hearing someone else talk, but you're not part of it, right? So what does that do to your psyche? Like, it pushes you back, right? So like there's a part of you that says, okay, there's people talking, but I'm just a listener. I'm not part of it. So I have a friend that he does a healing program online where literally he just matches people up on Zoom. So one person is just looking at one person, and it's a group thing, but everyone's one-to-one. And they have all these like mirroring things where they like, connect on all these super deep levels, and it's so cathartic. But I feel like, especially with lockdown and all this kind of stuff, we've created distance from each other. But that this belief that we're separate, this belief that we're individuals, is part of this illusion, right? Because ultimately there's one infinite, eternal creator, and we're all
expressions of it. Yeah, we're parts
and
of it.
well, it's not even what the thing I don't like about the word parts or expressions is that implies that there's this one over there and we're over here. But the reality is we're inside of it. We're in it. We're like molecules within this one eternal thing. And
ecosystem, yeah.
Yeah, and we're also fractals of it. So we have the same fingers, we have the same shape, we have the same systems. And you know, like through breath work, that's really how I got the clearest with that. Because, you know, like ayahuasca is amazing. Highly recommend it to everyone. Everyone should definitely try it.
Well, I would caution people in that. Like, try it only if you feel compelled and ready.
Yes. Totally. Yeah. If you're getting like the really strong call from spirit, do it. If you're not getting the really strong call from spirit, don't even mess with it. But like even like DMT, all these different things, they're all great, and they all take you to other dimensions. They take you to other parallel universes. They let you see all kinds of cool stuff, but you're still dependent on a source. You're still dependent on a shaman, and that's like a, you know, there's a lot of abuse in that world, right? Like
it's an external stuff. Thing.
Yeah.
Like
so
we aren't acknowledging that we are source, like you said.
Yeah. So it's just like with this practice, you're able to lay down, breathe, and just connect with some friends and just go on the most incredible, profound, illuminating journey with nothing. You know, you just gotta put a little effort into it. And
thank you. Say that, emphasize the importance of that.
Well, so like, look, when you go for a run or even a walk, you have to do it. You have to put one leg in front of the other. Even if you get on a treadmill, you still have to do the thing. You know, it's like nobody can breathe for you. I mean, the thing where they press on your chest and blow in your mouth, that's not sustainable. Like, I just did CPR class the other day, like refresher. Oh, really? I don't know. I just like to stay fresh on that. But, you know, when you're breathing and you're coming up to a block, and a lot of times you come up on these blocks and you don't even know what they are because they're inside your meat. They're inside your tissues. They're in your nervous system. Like they're literally like, it's like literally like clogged wiring in your nerves. So you come up against these blocks and you're just like, why is breathing hard right now? But you just ask for help. Say, angels, God, you know, whoever, right? Like beings of light, come into my body and help clear this thing.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, you hear me every week. Like I'm always like, all right, guys, ask for it to be easy. Ask the angels for help, you know? And, you know, like when you're on a run and you hit that little bit of a wall and you just push through it, suddenly your run becomes blissed out and easy, right? So it's the same thing with this breathing. It's like the easiest exercise you could do in the world because you're laying down. The only muscle in your body you're moving is your diaphragm, and that muscle's moving all day, every day anyway. So it's a good muscle. It's not like you need to really worry about that thing. The blocks don't come from your breathing muscles not working. They come from the energy that gets built up in your body. Gets really high. I mean, like you're in an hour-long breathwork session, you're generating a level of chi or prana or shakti or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of ancient terms for this, but you build up this energy to a level that's like on par with like a plant medicine ceremony. Yeah. So you have all this energy, like divine.
More even. I honestly, in my experience, I feel like when I do these breathwork sessions, I've had ample experience with everything you've mentioned. To me, this is so much more real and empowering because I'm producing it.
Yeah.
I'm producing it in alignment with me. But that's, anyway, go ahead and keep going.
Well, so just to that point, like when you're in a ceremony, you get your dose, and then maybe an hour later you get another one. When you're breathing, every exhale you're secreting, right? So it's like you know, medicinally, like just chemically, it might be more. But also, like you said, you're creating it, you're driving it, you're conscious.
DMT, literally creating DMT by breathing is what he's talking about, everybody. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're consciously piloting the production of this neurochemical through your body. And if things get really insane, you know, in your mind, you just breathe a little slower. But if things are not like fireworks and multidimensional experiences, pump it up.
breathe more, right? That's the put in the effort, like,
Yeah.
like, yes.
I mean, I've had some guys that are like really disciplined, and they're breathing like the whole time for an hour. And then when they come out, man, the stuff they share, it's like you get to sit down with Jesus or Buddha for like 40 minutes.
All right. So he brought up some really great points, and one that I want to touch on that I think is really important because it pertains to us as individuals taking control, or not taking control, but choosing to work through our pain, our trauma, our blockages, which is when you're breathing, okay, and you begin, you know, 15 minutes into it, whatever, and your DMT is being released and all these other chemicals that are happening, you start to notice that your body in different areas will like tense up, and you become conscious of different areas where you're holding tension. And I love how you remind people, like, okay, if you're feeling that tension when you're doing it, just breathe into it, like relax. And when you relax it, those blockages go away. And so in that way, this really profound physical healing takes place. Like you were saying, these people are having these, you know, like irreversible medical conditions that are healing. And the quote unquote science behind it is really very simple from a miraculous perspective. It's that you are choosing to become conscious of the miracle you are. And that is generating so much power, so much chi, energy, all that the things that prevent you from being consciously integrated with that are things you become conscious of and have the opportunity to work through in these sessions, which is amazing.
Yeah,
it's truly amazing. So talk maybe about that. I mean, it's just blockages, right? Like,
well, it's okay. So look, if you're driving and you get into a car accident, obviously there's a problem, right? But the biggest comparable to that we've all across the board experienced is birth, right? So you're in your womb, you're in this like totally protected, beautiful space inside your mom, nothing can go wrong. And then one day, every single thing that could go wrong goes wrong, right? Your whole body gets smashed and pushed through a vagina, and then all this water goes everywhere, and you get disconnected from your, you know, your source.
Yeah.
You know, I've delivered 2 children, so like I watch them like literally transition from being aquatic beings, like they're aquatic, dude. They like live in water for 9 months. And then they come out and you watch them, like their skin just dries up and peels off. And like, you know, like the transition from being like basically a fish to being a human is insane. Like there is so much birth trauma in our species. And that's just like a nice home birth, you know, like then we get into hospital birth with all the like beeping lights and bright stuff. Like, look, when you're in your mother, everything's dark. And if the sun is shining right on her belly, maybe it's a nice pink light, right? But then you get out into a hospital and it's like white fluorescent lights, cold air, beeping.
Institutionalization,
yeah. Maybe they cut off the tip of your penis right then. They typically take you from your mother. I think nowadays they're not doing that so much. And then what if you're not going on schedule, right? Like what if the doctor has to get to his next meeting, like then they just chop you open and pull you out, and you don't get the whole hormonal bonding dose that comes through natural birth. So there's a lot of, look, as a modern human being, we're faced with a lot of challenges. Diet and all that stuff, huge. Birth, a lot of us are just still holding on to birth trauma. The teacher that trained me, that's all her books are about birth trauma and all that stuff. So just, you see it everywhere. Like when you're breathing and your hands clamp up, that's literally your hands like returning to a birth state. And you're moving through a lot of the neurological residue that came from birth. So, I mean, I've done, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people. I've only seen 2 or 3 people that didn't have like clear signs of birth trauma. But they were like, raised, by monks kind of thing.
Conscious people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like in Bali, they don't have a lot of birth trauma because they never put the kid down. Once the kid is born, it's strapped to your body, it's strapped to the mother's body, and they don't put it down until the kid's 5. So there's a lot of time and closeness and bonding to heal any trauma of birth. So that culture doesn't have a lot of the same issues. But here in America, we don't have that. We want kids to be able to sleep on their own in the crib, so they cry it out all night. Like that kind of stuff's not
we haven't adapted to deal with it. Is really,
yeah, we're not set up for that.
And you know what, it's amazing too, because what you just mentioned about Bali and like other cultures where they still have an actual culture, right? Like the Western world never like really formed a culture. It's a consumeristic thing.
We have culture. We got NASA, we got Coca-Cola, we got great culture.
I mean, culture's a whole other thing we get into, but these cultures have this bonding thing. The thing about them is a lot of them are celebrating life, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like here, we're like, oh, fucking A, like I gotta do this, gotta do that. Like we have this like really stressed out disposition towards whatever it is in life that we have to do. And meanwhile, the abundance, you could say, the level of abundance that many in Western worlds have compared to those who maybe don't have all this shit, essentially, but they are happier. They're celebrating, like they have very little, but they love being alive. And that love of life is more of a natural state of being than this like, oh, fuck, like what?
So I went to Haiti to do some to help out, So when I went there, I met like literally the poorest people I'd ever met, but also I met the happiest people I'd ever met. Like they had sunshine, they had mangoes growing in all the trees. They were good. They were so happy. And when I was living in Manhattan, because for a while I was really sick and I just ate fruit, right? So for 4 years, I just ate fruit. I ate like 20 bananas a day or like a whole box of mangoes or whatever. So I would talk to, I remember I got into, this was back in the day when I was working on like Super Bowl stuff. So I got into the car, they'd taken me to a shoot or something. And the driver, he was from Haiti. And I was just telling him all about how I just ate fruit and all this stuff. And the sun was rising. So I asked him to go to this spot where I could go watch the sunrise. And so I could pull over. And he pulled over and I did some sun gazing for, 10 minutes. And then we got on our way. And so I got in the car and he asked me, he said, what are you doing? You're like staring at the sun for 10 minutes? And I'm like, yeah, it's like cosmic energy, like the more sun you get in your life, the more cosmic
sun,
energy.
the thing that's responsible for most of life on the habitable planet,
Yeah, you can every morning and every night, you can literally plug into the sun and like download the codes. Like it's just straight cosmic wisdom that comes through. But we got to talking about that, and we got to talking about eating all fruit and everything. And he told me that his brother was completely sick. He had gained all this weight, had cancer, all this stuff, living in Manhattan. So he went back to Haiti and just started living on the land, and everything went away. Everything. All the diseases, all the weight, all the problems, everything went away. So he's just staying down there. And so this cab driver, or not cab driver, like limo driver, he just said, now I just go to Haiti once a year, just to like get on the land, get connected, and unplug from this a little bit. But I mean, like even in the Amazon, I don't like the word shaman, because shaman's a Russian word. Like if you go to the Amazon, nobody's a shaman.
All of that.
Yeah, in Brazil they call them pages. So these pages, you know, they're leading all these Western people through ayahuasca journeys, and the Western people are saying, hey, we're doing ayahuasca. You know, when they ask, why are you doing this? What's your intention? The Western people say, oh, we're doing ayahuasca to connect to God. And the pages, they have no concept of that. They're like, how can you connect to, how did you get disconnected from God? Like how, you know, like they have no concept. But the real disease of Western culture is this belief that we've somehow disconnected from God. But how is this possible? We're in air, right? Like we're literally surrounded by this stuff that keeps you alive. If that's not God, I don't know what is, you know, like.
Well said. And that's like, and it's kind of, I think I put it in the title of this, there's a state of coherence, right? Now it's well documented by science. They call it heart-brain coherence. Mm-hmm. And essentially all it is just breathing rhythmically, smiling, choosing to be grateful that you're alive. And then all of a sudden your body systems start to regulate themselves in a way that's harmonious. So what you're talking about doing with all this is essentially you're going deep into what prevents you from willingly creating that state of harmony amidst all of these things that we haven't really adapted to be able to deal with so quickly. And this state of internal harmony is so important right now because look around, disconnected from the natural world. We're disconnected from where we think we are, but we're actually not. And that's the illusion, is healing the belief and the idea of separation, because it isn't actually really there. That's the whole crazy thing about it.
It's the illusion.
Yes.
It's the illusion, right? Like they call it Maya, they call it whatever. But like, look, on some level, like you're me and I'm you and all that stuff. And, you know, when I'm facilitating breathing, like, yeah, it's kind of a weird job, I guess, to just sit on Zoom and like stare at people breathing and like tune into them, like tune into their experience and kind of like intuit where they're at and like send them some energy or, you know, just help things flow. But the
music, what you do, he does different tracks and different types of music to just, it's all very intuitive based on what's happening. But yeah.
Yeah. And like sometimes people are getting up and I don't want to say anything, but like I'm trying to help the person who just came and sat back down, trying to get them back in. Yeah. Or, you know, there's like 1,000 little things that I'm tweaking the whole time. But when I'm doing this, I can feel the connection between everyone. Like, I'm not like, oh, there's Seth and there's this. I'm like, here's the unit, right? Here's the collective. And here's how the energy is flowing with the collective. Yeah. And just getting to see that over and over and over again, it's humbling. It's a real gift.
It's a gift. It's a labor of love, right? Like essentially that's what the world, the institutions, they don't teach us how powerful we are. No, like we go to school, like why are we not instructed to become conscious of these dormant perceptual glands that are all through us? Like,
dude, my niece in India, she goes to a school called the Intuition School. It's part of this whole Art of Living thing. So Art of Living is a huge spiritual organization. It's global, started in India. My cousin is like one of their facilitator kind of guys. Like he's deep in it. And so his granddaughter, she goes to the Intuition School where they teach you how to access all of your stuff. Like she literally puts on a blindfold and does coloring books blindfolded. Once I was driving around town with her and I was like, hey, what's the name of that street up there? I just wanted to know the name of the street because I can't read Hindi. So I literally watched her close her eyes and then point her third eye at the sign and then tell me. And I said, hey, how come you closed your eyes to tell me that? And she's like, I can see better with my eyes closed. Like, I have this girl on video doing like stuff that makes no sense.
And that is more in alignment with what we actually are.
Yeah.
And who we think we are.
But dude, this girl is 9 and she's in a class and all 50 kids are doing this. This isn't like woo woo, like new age. This is like actual human capability. Right.
And you know what, like that, during these times, we're watching all these systems crumble that we've all been so dependent on for survival, not knowing that we have everything we need within us to not only survive, but to thrive in the face of it. And so as we in these Western societies watch all of this chaos ensue, we just have to start remembering that there's a greater coherent force that we are encapsulated within. And if we can witness this chaos from that coherent space, then we entrain it, essentially. We bring a greater level of balance and connection to what appears to be disconnected. Thus,
well, here's the thing about chaos. Chaos is just a perspective. So if you feel like your life is in chaos, you can just pull yourself from it. Because when you get pulled into chaos, you get all passionate, you start doing crazy shit, and then next thing you're in jail, right? Or whatever.
People get stuck in it, exactly.
Or whatever it is, or you said something you didn't mean, and now you're broken up with someone that you loved, right? But the thing about chaos is when you pull away from it, it's beautiful, and it's natural, and it's okay. Like, think about a tornado. If you're in a tornado, you're in a bad place, right? Like, woo, like. But if you're far away from a tornado, it's pretty cool looking, right? Same with a hurricane. If you're in a hurricane, bad place to be. But if you're like in an airplane above a hurricane or like in one of those satellite images of the hurricane, it's super cool looking. It's like a weather donut, even traffic, like I live in LA, there's LA traffic. When you're in it, you're just like, God, I hate traffic. Oh, why do I live in LA? Oh, traffic is the worst. But, when you leave town and then you fly back in, you're kind of coming into LAX and you see the rivers of light going all over town, the Red River and the White River, and you feel the energy of the city and you're just so excited. I mean, like the traffic is the prettiest part of a city when you're flying over it.
What a way of looking at things, right? And it's that zoomed out, you're zooming out and you're not being just stuck in it, which so many people are. They're stuck in who they think they are. Meanwhile, what they are is being neglected. It's just not even being paid attention to. And that's the whole point of everything that Ra does with these breathing classes is he's not a guru. He's helping you tap in to the part of you that already knows what to do when you get out of the way, when the conditioned part of you is like, okay.
I'm not trying to be anyone's teacher or guru or anything like that. All I'm trying to do is say, hey, if you just lay down and you breathe, you can be your own guru. You can be your own whatever you want to be. But like all this stuff all these answers that we look for, all this seeking that we do. I mean, and look, I've done a lot of seeking. I shaved my head, monks shaved my head in the Himalayas, and then I prayed to God and said, where can I see you more? And they said, go to the Amazon. So I've done the seeking, I've done the looking, but it's all inside. Yes. And look, you can get a telescope. Today we have the biggest, most amazing telescopes every year now. we're finding more planets than we ever discovered as a species ever, right? Like we can see so far out. Like we've gotten to the point where we can point our telescopes and stuff into blackness, right? Like the space between stars, and then zoom in and find whole other things. So no matter how far out you look, you're going to find stuff because we live in an infinite thing, right? At the same time, when you get a microscope and look down, when like we have machines on this planet that let us look into the atoms, like before atoms are even formed, and we're still finding stuff. We're finding like bosons and neutrons and all these little elemental things that are pre-atomic structure. So it's like seeking is great, but no matter how hard you seek, you're still going to keep finding stuff. The only way you can ever be done with seeking is just to say, okay, I've seen enough. Now I'm just going to be here.
Just be with what you are, with what you have, breathe with it, love it, be grateful for it. No need to try to stress yourself out to figure out what you came into this world with. By the way, going back to childbirth, I love how you made that aquatic creature. It's so true. Like when we're babies, right? When we're conceived, we're literally like these little amphibious things. Like and now all of a sudden everybody thinks there's somebody. We were little salamander looking creatures.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I'm Seb, this is my life. This is my car. Like, really? I was a salamander once, and so was everybody here. Before we even become salamanders, right? Because if you look at a salamander embryo and like a whatever embryo and a human embryo, they all look the same. But before that, so first we're just one cell that gets fertilized and that whole magic thing happens. Then we become two, then we become 1, 2, 3. We basically become a pyramid, right? So when we first take shape, we become a pyramid. And then we become this like sacred geometry shape thing. And then the first body part to form on a human body, guess what it is? Heart or tongue? I don't know.
All right. So there's a point in every human's development where you're just a glob of cells and your only body part is an asshole. So every single person has had a point in their life where they were just nothing but an asshole.
Oh man, what a beautiful and funny analogy for really I
just feel like that's how we start. So like, where do we go from there?
Some people never change, right? Wow, you were an asshole then and you are now. Good job. That's evolution. All right, that's right. Let me look here and see if anybody has any questions or anything that they want to ask.
You got like a whole control panel over there, huh?
Kind of. Laura and I have talked about making this a lot more, because we both have all these channels all over the place, and we're like, okay, there's software you can link them all together and reach more people. But until that, I'll be careful what I say, because there's those who aren't super happy about what we do. And they take platforms away. All right, if anybody has any questions at all for anything that Ron and I have discussed here tonight, please ask. And if you don't, that's okay. And this video will be up and it'll be shared across a bunch of other platforms too. So obviously the questions, this is a live broadcast right now, but the replays will be replays. And regardless if you have questions or not, if any of this feels of interest to you or compelling, or you want to experience it, come to the live breathing sessions that we do, that Ra does every Sunday. It's give the details, though they're in the thing below the description. But.
Oh yeah, it's super easy. Just go to meta, META, funtime.com, METAFUNTIME, metafuntime.com. So you just go there. At the top of the page, it says get a ticket. So you just get a ticket. It'll ask you how much you want to donate. You donate, and you'll you come. You'll get emailed a Zoom link, and if you want to create some sacred space for yourself, right? Because look, if you just come, that's fine. If you want to prepare some space for yourself, light a candle, like at least one, like one white unscented candle, ideally beeswax, because that helps the air around you. But also the candle helps open up a space between the physical and the non-physical world. So when you're breathing out all this stuff, you have an opportunity to really like release some heavy duty stuff. And so you want a candle there just to catch it and just release all that energy to the light. I also recommend having houseplants, or at the minimum cut flowers nearby. These, like in the Amazon, they don't even have a word really for plants. They're just called allies in life, right? Because how can you even live without plants, right? Like it's everything you eat, everything you breathe, it all comes from plants. Without these beautiful beings and collaborators in this earth experiment, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So I always like to have some nice plants nearby. This is one of my buddies.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just that's really the only like hard part. Have a candle, have some plants. Just be mindful with your candle. Beeswax or soy is the best. I just kind of experimented, went to a bunch of different stores and tried different candles. They have some really cheap candles at the dollar store, but if you light them, it smells like somebody poured gasoline in your carpet. So just don't get those candles. They're made out of something really gross. But yeah, so you just come once you're in Meta Fun Time, like we get on Zoom. I give some basic instructions and some just guidance. You're going to feel weird stuff in your body, right? Because your pH is going to shift. You're going to go from because you go from being really acidic, and then when you start breathing, you start bringing in more oxygen. You start getting a lot of CO2 and like trap CO2 out. And the way our body holds CO2 is through acid, right? Acid is basically CO2 chained together. And then the other way we hold it is fat. But guess what? Life hack, fat is acid. That's why they call fats long chain fatty acids. So, I've had people that come to a bunch of sessions, they lose a lot of weight because they just literally exhale it. I remember when I first started noticing this thing, I was like, why are these people that come, why are they losing weight? I started researching it, and I just go into Google and say, where does fat go when you lose weight? Because it's not like you don't pee out oil, and it's not like your poop gets really oily all of a sudden. Where does this oil go, right? So anyway, I just got really curious, and I found you exhale it because it's CO2.
Like
your body
becomes
your body literally just releases it like air. It's amazing.
Just the concept of that is so expanding, because suddenly you realize how intelligent this force is that's animating this body. I know my body is way more intelligent than I am. Yeah. And that's why I'm always like, okay, as soon as I think I know something, I'm like, my body knows way better. And I keep bringing my attention back. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know anything. But in that is this knowingness of everything that you can settle into and trust. All right, there's a few questions here. Let's see.
Questions, yay.
So Marianne, hey Marianne, yes. She asked, do you have to lay on your back? Yes, the question that. So here's one question. What frequency heals effectively?
So look, there's different frequencies for different chakras, right? There's lower frequencies for your lower chakras, higher frequencies for higher chakras. So look, if you have a root chakra problem, use a root chakra frequency. If you have a crown chakra problem, use a crown chakra frequency. It's not like one frequency is the best frequency. It's just harmonizing, right? Like literally all sound is healing. Like sometimes I play really sacred crystal bowl kind of stuff, but sometimes, if it's a lot of guys and I'm feeling a lot of like pent up aggression and stuff, I play Pantera or Metallica, all
Yeah.
sound is sacred. It's just how you use it.
And more than anything, too, to add to that, the sound of somebody's own voice. If you have pain, if you have anything, if you just tone, you don't need to be a singer. You don't need to like be exactly, just making sound and being aware of whatever your issues are creating a vibratory frequency, a resonance that is healing in and of itself. Yes,
Can you hear that?
What's that?
Can you hear my humming?
I did. I could hear you. Yeah. That's why I was like, absolutely.
I mean, like if you want a life hack, this humming sound can get you out of most problems. Like, you know,
just
like
humming. Yes.
Just anytime you're like little wacky schmacky, just hum. It's really,
it hits the vagus nerves, right? Those two nerves that run down. People think it's one nerve, but that comes down the back and it just connects to every system. And when you hum and you make your own voice, you feel literally, I mean, it's so simple. You just feel the vibration of your own hum resonate through all the parts of your body. You know, one thing that I do personally is, you know, I've spent so much time in deeply conflicted places where I had no choice but to turn inward and just create a lot of stillness, a lot of calm. And you get to the point where you become so transparent of your own being that you can feel your pulse anywhere. And when you get really good at feeling your pulse in your pineal gland, in your pituitary gland, in your thyroid gland, you get good at it. Suddenly you're bringing your heart energy consciously to all these stagnant places, which is another thing that I want to mention too about these breathing sessions is, you know, when I come to it, every time we do it, I make sure I'm in a state of heart-brain coherence. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to come together with others in an open-minded, open-hearted way and create this space together. And so I bring a lot of my own love and respect and gratitude for all the souls that show up and who are willing to go beyond their comfort zone and just do this together. So that element of human relationship, of unconditional acceptance of one another, and throwing the belief systems and ideas of, oh, this person's like that, and so I'm not, like, that's gone. Like, we are in it together. We're doing it because we're in it. We're all alone together, right? We're all one together is really what it is. And when we put that into practice and we show up for ourselves, for each other in that way, the effects start to become self-evident in your quote unquote normal life, in your day-to-day waking life that is happening temporarily, but that we have also temporarily been conditioned to only perceive this little sliver of it happening. That begins to like dissolve. You suddenly start becoming more aware of awareness itself. And it's really just a return to being embodied. And that's what this does. That's what, like, by breathing the way he does, being conscious of it while you're doing it, feeling the spots that maybe aren't so comfortable and breathing through them, you expand beyond your limitations. You become more grounded and anchored in this being that you temporarily are, and you learn to love it. Who wouldn't want to start doing this more often in our world? I mean, I guess if people have a lot of corporate interest in this belief that money is so important, they're, you know, going to play this game of whatever. But most of us are over that. We want connection. We want to move beyond our stress, all these things, like, and connect to what it is we truly have the potential to be. And that's why I brought Ra on tonight, because the effects and experiences that I've been having with him have been so profound that I've just been telling people. I've been telling everybody I know, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go public. I'm like, do you want to do it? He's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's just try to tell and get as many people doing this, because like you said, in India, and many other countries around the world, there are schools where people are teaching children their potential, what they are and what they're capable of. And as we witnessed all this stuff come crumbling down here, it is a perfect opportunity to begin to embody this stuff and introduce potential to all those around us. So, all right, everybody, unless there's any less questions here, I'm gonna have Ross say some closing words or anything that he wants to. And then I'm hoping that everybody is going to join us, whether it's this Sunday or the next or whatever. It's every Sunday, but try to come this Sunday. I'm going to be there. I'm at most of them. Sometimes I don't make it to it, but I show up and I'm a practitioner. I just show up. I bring all my heart and soul. I love life. Okay. And I have had my freaking head battered. I've had my heart broken into a million pieces. I've been through so many things that are so brutal, and I've learned to heal and love greater as a result of going through that. So there's a lot of that energy by all of us in there. So anything you want to say, any closing words or anything?
I just hope to see you on Sunday. Come breathe and come share with everyone what you discovered, what you found, what you healed. I mean, you know, this little community we have is such a joy and a treasure. I hope you can come.
It is, and it's small. Like sometimes there'll be a lot of people, sometimes there'll be a small group. Like it changes, but ultimately it's a small community, and the effects are huge. Like the effects are universal. So to be able to do this, especially at a time like you said, with lockdown and all the things that are happening, could there be a more obvious sign from the great pulse of life that, okay, here, time out, everybody, like go be in your place. What are we going to do in that time? Is there any better time to practice going within and connecting to what is actually happening, the pulse of life that is beating through you?
Yeah, there's something really curious about the fact that COVID attacks your lungs. All these social issues, the guy, he says, I can't breathe, and he's killed by the police. You know, these terrible things, all having to do with breathing. And, you know, the year before COVID, I had this intuitive hit that I needed to move to New York. I moved from beautiful Topanga to New York and just started doing these breathing sessions full time. I had 3 weekly sessions where anywhere from 15 to 40 people would come. And when COVID happened, I just, all the studios shut down. So I just went and did something else. But I love what you say about this pulse of life, the great pulse that we're all with. Just from my perspective, I feel like we're being asked to really understand our breath, to really get into our breath, because I feel like that's the seat of sovereignty, but it's also like how we evolve and how we go into being this next iteration of human, right? Like how do we start moving from being a 3-dimensional person to a multi-dimensional person, and how do you do that on your own, like without an external substance?
Right, internally. And it's such an obvious thing, like when we're in this like 3D survival kind of mode, there's 3 things that are quite essential if we're stuck in this, right? If you're super conscious and beyond it all, maybe these things don't apply, but food, air, and water. Food, right? We eat it, but you can go a long time without eating food.
Yeah. Okay.
Water so then water becomes more of an essential, right? You can go quite a while without drinking water.
You can go a few days.
It's food.
You can go, yeah.
But air, can't go very long without breathing air. So just that in and of itself should clue you into like, okay, here's a big part of everything. So when you start to breathe at a more full capacity of what you're actually designed to be able to do, like for me in my life, I breathe slow, deep, full breaths. But I've trained myself to do this. I made a conscious effort because I realized when I was in a state of fear or panic or anxiety or trauma, I was breathing shallow. And I was like, okay, but when I started realizing I was doing that and started taking deeper, slower breaths, the pain, the trauma, the anxiety began to dissipate. So when you start to breathe like that and you do it deep and you do it with like conviction, and not only do you move beyond the trauma, but you start to activate these dormant things in us that are blocked up. So breath is so fundamental to everything. And it's probably one of the most important keys to our evolutionary development. And don't take my word for it or Ra's. Like, come, breathe, do with what we're talking about, and then come to your own conclusion.
You know what we could do another time? The same way you're live streaming this YouTube, we could do like you, and we'll get a couple other people, and we'll do a full-on
live breath,
a live session that people can watch and come to later.
Absolutely. For sure, we will do that. Let's do it. And that way, those who are like kind of curious but don't want to go all in can just see, and they can practice it and not have to, like, you know, because everybody is at a different place, and we all understand that. Like,
yeah,
you know, like not everybody, it feels really comfortable breaking out of their comfort zone, and some people just have to do it when they're ready, and that is encouraged with this too. So, I
mean, look, when I first heard about this, I thought it was completely silly.
Yeah.
I was like, what? When I first did it, it was like a private session, so it was like $300. So I was like, okay, let me get this straight. I'm gonna give you $300, and I'm gonna come and lay down and breathe on my own, and you're gonna watch me and like pray over me or something. I don't get it.
That's wild.
I thought the whole thing was so kooky, but look, when you start realizing that you can literally release trauma that you've been holding since birth. I mean, look, birth is tough. Kindergarten is tough. The first bully you ever had is tough. The first time you ever got sick, all these things come out in your system, right? The first time you had to like be separated from your parents is tough, right? Like, I remember like going through my layers. I was remembering like babysitters from when I was a baby. I was remembering like just weird stuff, you know, like things that you would never think are an issue are such a big issue, like are an issue to your body, right? So our body is very sensitive, right? It's made out of all these trillions of little cells, right? Like, so just cause like in your head you're not like completely heartbroken, somewhere like maybe your knee is heartbroken about something, who knows? But you see this stuff happen. I see it happen all the time. I remember I was working on a lady. She had major problems in one of her knees, and we're doing the breathing session, and I'm not even breathing. I'm just watching her. And when I blink, I'm like seeing these like weird, like reindeer looking thing with like 6 sets of eyes, you know, like eyeball, eyeball, eyeball. And they're all like licking her legs and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is that about? I didn't say anything. She gets up from the session, and the whole session was about her legs. You know, we were trying to breathe out whatever this thing was, this chronic thing in her legs. And she told me, she was like, yeah, while I was breathing, I saw these like animals from another dimension, like coming to heal my legs. And I was like, okay, well, I saw it too. I can't really explain it, but I was like, well, why don't you stand up? And when she stood up, it was like a whole different thing, because we had done a whole diagnostic of looking at her legs and, you know, kicking her feet and all this stuff. She had totally new legs after the end of the session. So like, look, we hold these issues in our tissues in all kinds of weird ways that like if you're looking at it through the lens of modern medicine, these things I'm saying make no sense. Right. And I'm not even trying to say, hey, I know how to explain it in a way that's gonna make it make sense, because I don't think it's about that. I don't think it's about having more information about this experience. I think it's just about experiencing this experience. Come to the session with all your shit. Come with all your problems, all your baggage, all your pain, and let's see what we can do.
Let's vaporize it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even about me doing it. Let's see what you can do about it. Like, can you breathe into this thing?
You're just cheering everybody on to do it, essentially.
Yeah, I'm like a glorified cheerleader, basically. But like, like when you watch a candle, right? You see this flame, and it literally evaporates an entire stick of solid matter, right? And a candle is basically fat, right? Like it's an oily thing, right? And you watch this flame just consume it. Imagine that same energy, that same power that you see in a candle, that's inside you in every cell of your body. And when you're breathing and channeling this breath, you're able to move tremendous amounts of stuff in your body.
All right. Well, thank you, Ra. I appreciate it, brother. And everybody, the link to how to sign up for this, if you're interested, is below this video. And I hope to see you guys there, or feel it. More importantly, I hope to feel you there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's play.
So, Ra, thank you for taking the time to come on and talk about what you're doing, and just for doing this work. Because again, like I'll just closing on this, like I didn't think it was silly, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think it was going to be as profound as it actually was. And I also was like, all right, I'm going to go all in. Like, I'm going to really commit to breathing to my fullest capacity that I could do. I had no idea that what happened was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was so beside myself, literally and figuratively, like in those moments, like I was like, oh my God, there couldn't be a more beneficial thing that you could do with an hour of your time.
Yeah. I mean, even today, like when I go through my sketchbooks and look at drawings of stuff I saw, or like go through like my notebooks and I'm like describing stuff, I'm just like, what? How did I do that? Like,
Exactly. And people can believe whatever they want, like whatever belief system or religion, like all of it is welcome. Bring whatever you can, like if you call on whatever like guide or religious figure, or like you can call on that to assist you while you do this and grow.
Yeah. Like if you like Allah or Christ or Kuan Yin or the giant spaghetti monster, everybody's welcome to come help the healing happen.
See, and this is the thing, it's so fun. He brings this this attitude, this joy, this thing that most people don't understand that because it's a feeling. It's like when you overcome the things that hold you back, you find laughter, you find joy, you find like, oh, thank God I'm here. Like, what's the alternative to not being here? Being dead. Like, I would much rather be here and face darkness with an open heart and happiness. Even if it is this scary, dark thing, I would much rather do that than not. So,
well, I call this Sunday session meta fun time.
Yeah.
But laughter and crying are the same. And, at the beginning of every session, I say, hey, this is a safe place to cry. If you feel any tears, cry them out. Like crying is really good. It's like a little shower for your heart. It helps wash away some of that grief and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, crying, at least in our culture, it's not seen as the most fun thing. So I didn't call it meta cry time. But yeah, come cry, and hopefully you get to the point where you're crying so much that you start laughing, right? Because then it's transmuted, and you're in a new place with it.
All right, that's exactly it. That's the perfect ending point too. So transformation, everybody. It is truly metaphysical, meta transformation that takes pain and turns it into
pleasure.
That's treasure. Well, it's beyond pleasure. It's treasure.
Oh. I love
All
it.
right, awesome. Thank you, Ra. And thank you,
Thank you,
everybody,
Seth.
for tuning in with us. And we'll see you Sunday. All right.